As we begin looking at page 4 of the account maintenance, the schedules page, we can identify several of the fields here. The first field is the day field. There are several different ways to hyphenate or identify which days of the week. Schedule is identified as Monday through Friday, or M-F, Monday through Saturday, M-S, and there are lots of other capabilities within there for identifying them. Remember that the days that the open closing schedules that are shown on this page are the exact date. In other words, this account is going to close Monday morning at 1 a.m. but open up again Monday morning at 11. So this is not an opening of 11 o'clock Monday and a closing at Tuesday at 1 a.m. This is the exact time on that day. So Monday we we close at 1 a.m., open up at 11 a.m. Tuesday we close at 2 a.m., that's we're open through the Monday night, past midnight. We close Tuesday at 2 a.m. and open up back up at 11 a.m. It's very important to understand this part. Now, there are several types of opening types. Basically, there are three. There is the O type, which is the UL type schedule, which is a single opening and a single closing each day. For these, we would open up, let's say, at 9 a.m., plus or minus 5 minutes, depending on whatever we put the tolerances in. We close at 5 p.m., let's say. But if we try to open back up at 6 p.m., we're going to get an exception event or an early opening. The other type of event is the S-type event. And I probably can open up our help screen now, and it should help us a little bit here. The S-type is the third type that's mentioned here, and it allows any number of openings occurring within the schedule to be automatically logged. So I may be dealing with a fence that has opening and closings on it. Let's say it's a access into a truck area. And they open this up at 7 a.m. in the morning, and they close it at 5 p.m. And every time they open and close this gate, it's an opening for the gate and a closing for the gate. This may happen 30 times every day. No one cares. We just want to log all these openings of the gate and closings of the gate. But if anybody tries to open after that last closing period of 5 p.m., then we want to bring it up to the attention of the operator as an entry alarm or an early opening. The third type is the R type. The R type is a repeat opening where it may not have any schedule at all. And it's possible to mix and match these within the same account. For example, when we looked at our zone page, we saw that user number 1 was an R-type opening, and we talked about how he was the manager or the owner, and he would come in outside of schedule, and it was okay as long as he closed within 30 minutes. Well, that's kind of the definition of the R-type. But as we could have done with the zone, in the schedule itself, there are some modifiers of that can be very, very useful. By definition, originally, the R-type was used for those accounts that had to be closed at a certain period of time, but it didn't matter when they opened. There are lots of places out there that say, well, they can open up anytime they want to, but I want to make sure that my business is closed at 11 p.m. at night. In that case, we would not put an opening schedule, but we would put a closing time of 2300 and use an R type for his opening and closing type. In that case, he can open up any word time he wants to, 5 p.m., 9 p.m., 1 a.m. in the morning, but come 11 p.m., he's got to be closed or we're going to generate a late to close. Now, going along that zone that we talked about for the management of the supervisor personnel, what we identified there was he could come in any time with an R-type as long as he was out of there within 30 minutes, because we were going to automatically generate a late to close after 30 minutes if he comes in outside of his normal schedule. Well, there are modifiers to that. There are times that we're dealing with cleaning crews, and the schedule for the account could be open at 8 a.m., close at 5 p.m., but I know that the cleaning crew is going to be in, and when they come in for about 2 hours, and they do that 5 nights a week. In that case, we don't really want to use the R-type because they're going to be in there longer than that. And after 30 minutes, if we use the R-type, we're just going to create an event where the operator's going to call them. They're going to tell them they're going to be in there 2 hours. He's going to put a temp schedule in. But if we put a number 4, and you'll see in the middle of the screen here, we've got a number 4 equals 2 hours. What we're saying there is if they open up after hours, and we have a 4 in there for the R-type, it's going to automatically create a schedule that has a 2-hour window before the late to close comes in. This will set us up so that our cleaning crews, our after-hours people that come in, it could be any number of different things, they're going to be able to get in there and do whatever they've got to do for a 2-hour window. And it doesn't matter if they get in there at 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. They're always going to have that 2-hour window. If they're not completed with their task after 2 hours, then we're going to get the late to close for the operator. He's going to call there, get their pass card, and find out what they're going to do or how much longer they're going to be in there. Now, going farther from that, we can select whether or not we want the late to opens. I think that's a reasonable thing. There are some customers that want to be called on an opening signal no matter what. In that case, we can force an opening to be an exception if we wish. There are those customers that are going to say, yes, I want to be able to close early. Other customers may not believe that, and what this basically does is if somebody closed before their schedule allows them to close, they're going to generate a mnemonic called an early closing, an ECL. If we answer yes to the closing early, they won't generate that ECL mnemonic. They'll instead generate the CLO mnemonic, which will be normally just auto-logged without any operator action. We can force an exception on closing if we want to. Not a typical thing, but we do have that kind of flexibility. And the late to close. Notice over the right, we have our tolerances. We've got an early open tolerance, we've got a late open tolerance, we've got an early close and a late close tolerance. So if they're supposed to close at 2 a.m., and I have a 60-minute late to close window, that means that they're going to have up to an hour later before I'm going to generate the late to close. Same thing holds true on the late to open. Now, note this. If you have schedules, and if these are supervised schedules, you must put an early open tolerance in there somehow, some way, and also a late to close tolerance. You can put 00 if you want, but you must have something in there. Otherwise, the program thinks when it comes to a day other than what you have a schedule in there, that they're just supposed to log it right through. So make sure that you've got these tolerances in there. There are searches that you can do on your database to ensure that you have a tolerance when you have a schedule. That can be covered under the sifting capabilities, and we can find those fairly easily with a data type search. Now, in addition to those, you've got global codes. Now, the global codes relate to the global schedules, which are set up, and I might have, for this particular one, I've got 7 codes there. So if I looked at these 7 codes, I look at my globals to find out which ones match. The Sims for Windows has a very nice upgrade on this where you can press a button and it'll tell you all the matching codes for your holiday schedules. But in the Sims for DOS, you have to keep a sheet that will actually show you in the G, if you've got a G in the first character, it possibly might match with these. An L in the second might match with these, and so forth. Below there are 7 places where you can put in temporary schedules. Those are not typically put in the account maintenance, and I think we even bypass them. Yes, we bypass them in there. These are for the operators who are putting in temporary schedules for late to closes, late to opens, and entry alarms, and so forth like that. Let's move on to the next page. the account maintenance miscellaneous. This is page 5 of our complete database. It's got several fields that are very important here. Number 1, we've got brief comments that have a starting and ending date. That's just the top line for starting and ending date. And then we have temporary comments below that that also can have a start and ending date. Now, brief and temporary comments, as well as temp schedules, can roll over past the end of the year. But if you are in the month of December and you want to put a rollover comment or a rollover schedule that passes across the first of the year, you must limit the end of that schedule to the 15th or before. In other words, I could put in a Christmas thing for this, but I can't go beyond that. If I go beyond that, it'll not take place. This is just a rollover thing, but it's something that's important to bring out and bring to your attention. You can roll them over, but you got to do that. Now, once you get into January, then you can set them anywhere you want to. But if you want this to roll past that, it's very important that you remember there is a limitation of the 15th. Now, and the same thing, of course, held true in the temporary comments below. The temporary comments are accessed inside of a dispatch mask. They are really intended for operator usage. The brief comments are entitled for those things that we put inside the database. Now, below there is found the permanent comment area. The permanent comment area is 11 lines of 58 characters. These are general type comments. They may or may not have something to do with the handling of the alarm. I've seen a lot of instances where they'll put directions if they're out in the country about how the county police should get to the place that they're trying to go to. But these are 11, so they'd be 58, so that's something over 600 characters that are allowed to be put in. These can be hotkeyed access from the dispatch mask. It's very easily for them to get there. But don't use these comments in place of using features within the SIMS-II. Don't force your operators to read these unless they need to. Now, going from there, over on the right-hand side, I've got several fields that, again, are very interesting fields. The date entered, the date the account was entered. This is automatically filled in when you first enter the account. The last service date, and that'll pertain especially to the next page. The last time a service call was created for this particular account. The latest event, the last time there was an event that came in on this account. So every time a signal comes in, it'll update this date. Activity began. This is the first signal that came in from out in the field and was registered by this account. There is a contract renewal field. So if you want to keep track of contracts, you can put the date that this is renewed. The reason this can be nice is there are ways that you can create reports for all those accounts that have contracts coming up next month. Very, very helpful like that. The Sims for Windows and the DOS have this ability. Sims for Windows has got a much more enhanced way that you can separate out these. You can put the date the verification form was returned if you want to. If their dispatching capability or if the police department has put them on no response, you can put the date in here when they'll be reinstated on. This will then allow the software to monitor this date. The moment the date comes, then the dispatching will become active again, or at least the error screens telling you they're no longer dispatchable will then cease to come up. There is a begin false alarm check. If most people give a certain grace period for accounts when they first install them, so they won't dispatch for the first week or something like that. And then you may pick a date that says, well, I'm going to begin my false alarm checks on a certain date. And so from then we start getting involved in 3 alarms in the last 365 days and so forth. American Two-Way is a field that has something to do with monitors and audios and so forth like that. We have a map grid field, a keypad field in case you're doing actual dispatching of the guard service out. You can keep the keypad number and it's available within the dispatching mask to assist those personnel that have to go to the site. Now we can move on to page 6, the account equipment list page. Again, this is a moving list box page, same as the zones and the contacts. It's excellent for storing the type of equipment that's at the location along with the warranty dates and so on and so forth like that. This is utilized by a lot of customers. They like this kind of thing. Even though it doesn't have anything directly with the dispatching, it can save you from having to get involved in extra packages and so forth. Page 7 is identified as the account mailing, service, and charges page. The right hand of this page is a static storage of information that's located over there. This does not work with the SIMS billing package. It's not intended to work with any billing package, but it was used by our customers for a long time so they could keep the rates and have them accessible within the SIMS2 database. The left-hand top side is the mailing page, of course, and this is the mailing address as opposed to the premise address, which we find on page 1. We can have different phone numbers. We can have different addresses, city, states. Everything is the same. But I will bring one to your attention. If you don't fill the fields in, it will automatically fill them in for you and extract that information from page 1. Also located on this page is an email and an alternate email address. So this is what we call the primary and the alternate email address for the account. You'll probably remember when we were discussing the zones, the capability of sending out emails that are sent in by zones or as recognition of the zones coming in. This is that email 1 address, email 2 address. Schedule service. We can set schedule service up so that every 365 days, beginning on today's date, and we identify them as in service area number 1. So I said 265, we might as well just say 365. So I can say that on January 15th, I'm due for another scheduled service. Okay, once the date for the beginning date is filled in, it'll automatically create this. Other places in the program, we can generate scheduled service calls so that we can get these to the operator's attention, or the service personnel's attention, excuse me. There are some fields for additional subscriber options. These are over and above the ones off of page 1, the vitals that we talked about. There are the abilities now in several of the CL Level 3s, DMP formats, to send in the descriptions of the zones. There are circumstances to where you would not want those descriptions used. And this would be a place where you could disable those descriptions from being used whenever the signals come in. You also have you also have restore E's and R's. Contact ID is basically made up of 7 characters, which is, of course, the limitation of the number of characters located within the SIM zones. When it originally was done, we always felt that 7 zones was more than we could ever need. It filled the contact ID concepts at that time, was plenty for all the projected SIAs, modem 2s, and so forth like that. Well, down the road, areas became or surfaced, I believe it was about in 1993, and when they surfaced, a little known group code was transmitted in the contact ID format. This first surfaced overseas and then was adopted here in North America by the panel manufacturers. We can transmit that area within our contact ID format. We do that by removing the E or R out of that contact ID format and substituting the area for the center character. Instead of it being E100-001, it would become 100, the area identifier 001. Well, when it gets to our accounts, since all of these manufacturers don't follow the capabilities of the panels as far as the protocols and what was laid out in the protocol specs, we may have to create circumstances where we can make this E100 anything in the world we want. And in order to do that, we're going to have to restore the E and the R so that we have the complete signal there. This can be a complex thing. It's available. You can certainly talk with the SIMS support staff about this. But this particular flag, when answered yes, restores that ENR even if we have overridden it and asked for the area information. Okay, let's move on then to the next page and the last page, which is the accounting information. Again, there was a time where the SIMS kept a lot of static accounting information that, again, was not used within the SIMS billing package when it was done, but was kept and utilized by other software packages and accounting packages that interfaced into the SIMS. On this page, you can see all the different types of fields, and they probably all make relative sense. There is balances and credits on the center right-hand side, which the accounting packages wrote back into there so we could hotkey it in for the dispatching and so forth like that. These are those fields. These fields also are brought up and updated by the SIMS billing package. So you can get hotkeys into these, but all of the start billing dates, end billing dates, these were static fields. They really have no relevance as far as the SIMS accounting, and we really shouldn't think too much about it. I would like to bring your attention, though, to one field on here that I think has significant importance, and that is the billing code number 2. Billing code number 2 is used by the SIMS billing package to create line items that different billing codes have different meanings for the account. In other words, billing code 14 may mean this is an open-closing account. Billing code 15 may be open-closing with a radio backup, and so forth. We can expand this on. When you do your third-party billing in the SIMS billing package, it will go and count up all these fields for the billing code number 2 and create line items on a single invoice for a dealer without having to deal with accounting on each one of his customers. Okay, this concludes our data entry section for the SIMS2 database.